biggest piece to peak performance is a relationship with yourself. Because your N is one, a healthy one, that you really know what works for you.
How do we do that?
Yeah, well, one is, I already gave it away, reflection, right? That little thing that I say before, during, and after. If that's a habit, then you really start understanding to know thyself, right? That's that. So in all those times, the past, present, and the future, I will know if it works for me or not. And there's also this simple saying, the truth is what works for you. What works today doesn't have to mean it will work 3 years from now.
Hello everyone, welcome to the new episode of the Bridging Podcast. I am here together with my guest, Robbert van Ede. Robbert is a top performer athlete, peak performance coach, and helps organizations and companies to create a high-performing culture from the inside out. He uses his experience with teachings from ancient philosophy, modern science, and top performance in his leadership work to achieve meaningful connection, fulfillment, and breakthroughs. He's also part of a global network of corporate consultants trained by Dr. Joe Dispenza to teach organizations how to apply the neuroscience of change to increase employee engagement, collaboration, creativity, productivity, and ultimately business results. Welcome again for the second time.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. So, Robbert, today we're going to talk about peak performance, especially how to achieve peak performance.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to define with you, what is peak performance?
Yeah, of course. It's a really important question also, because I think there's many different definitions, and I'll break it down in multiple ways for you and the listeners. So I would say at first it was like, especially when you say like, the athlete part of my being is, I did many sports, and peak performing, and that was, that you would win or be the best or whatever. And peak performance then was, okay, there's a game or there's like whatever what's important for you, that like when you need to be at the peak and you need to perform. And it was all about, just, for example, as a cyclist, I knew that there's specific things I can do in the week. Mm-hmm. So a long training in the middle of the week, and then the day before the match, I would do like a very slow cycling, not doing nothing, but very slow for like an hour, and then the next day I would feel amazing. But there were also nutrition-wise things, so there was many of these mechanics you can do to that, okay, then I'm at my peak, then I can do my best delivery. But if you say peak performing, and it's also a little bit inauthentic, right? It's performance, like you're performing. Mm-hmm. Is that the real thing? Now, not to make it too broad, but if you talk about, you can also say that in life you're just performing. You're in a role, or you have different parts of your personality, and what is real and what is authentic. So if you talk about peak performance, what is it you're performing, and is it actually also the thing that you want to be performing? And then we talk about the peak.
Yeah. So if someone would ask you, if you could answer in only one sentence, what does peak performance mean to you? In one sentence, maybe two.
To be in a state where you feel and perform the best.
To be in a state where you feel and perform the best. Yeah. It can be in any dimension in your life.
Anything.
Okay.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to add is, in the past, we would say it's a spiritual experience. What now is peak performance used to be a spiritual experience. And then Nietzsche came around, he talks about Rausch, and then Maslow came around when we think about the pyramid, which it's not a pyramid. He never made it into a pyramid. We did that. Mm-hmm. And he talked about peak experiences. So you have all these really smart people that talked about it. Einstein had things that he did to do that. And at a certain point, they said, all of these people they're not religious. So let's get that religious and that spiritual out of it, and let's just make it like it's a performance, and it's like, but it is at your peak. So that's actually, I don't like the term peak performance. Same as biohacking, right? I also don't like that term, but we use it because then you know what we mean. So
what would you call it instead of peak performance, based on all the knowledge you have, experience you have?
Yeah, well, I like the peak experience. I think that's already much better. It's like just a meaningful peak, these special experiences. Special
experiences where you are actually perform the best.
Well, and then it's maybe not even perform. It's just you feel amazing. I think that it's more about the experience of what you feel, not about, because performing is always about a certain benchmark.
Exactly. And, you have done this marathon in so many minutes, so many hours.
Yes.
But could this also do? We are sitting here. We have a conversation. We had a 2-hour conversation even before.
Yes.
Would you define this also as a peak performance where we are in a flow and where we feel some certain thing?
Yeah. So flow is interesting because, if you talk about Nietzsche and Maslow, you come to Mihaly.
The book, The Flow.
I always mess up his name. I'm sorry, but he's not.
But he wrote the book, The Flow. We will actually put it in the episode notes. Yeah.
And what's interesting about what the other people did, they only researched what people who were really extraordinary used to do, right? What he did, he said across the board, I don't care what kind of people, who you are, what you've done. He explored everything, and he traveled the whole world. And then he came up with this thing that the thing that was most common in what people would say in these experiences was, it's like one moment flows into the next moment. That's where the name flow comes from. So, and this is also what I live a high flow life. So we're now in my space, and I have, as you saw, I have like my treadmill, and I have my hammock, and there's my saunas here.
Your sauna, it's over there.
And the sea is right there, and I have all these, and nature, and you maybe can hear the birds. So I have all these things that for me help me to be in that state where I feel amazing. So then it's a side effect that whatever I do, I'll be really good at.
Yeah. So the side effect of
feeling amazing.
Oh yeah, when you are in flow, when you feel amazing, all the side effects of that will also come to you, because you also, I would also say, you would attract these things because you're in a certain frequency.
Yes. And if you talk about flow, it's like you're selfless. It's not about me anymore. The time dilutes. You have no idea where you are. And you have this weird paradox of control where you don't try to do things, but you can. And then there's this thing, and they called it autotelic, but it's actually like you're addicted to what you're doing. But it's like what you do is everything you want from it. So we're programmed to, if you do this, you get this, right? So what if the thing you're doing is everything is fulfilling all your needs? Just what you do. If that's your work, then work is not work anymore. It's just what you do. And then the side effect is that money comes in, and recognitions comes in, and all these things come in. So for me, that autotelic, I love that part because that's, then you're done with life. And the other thing that's really, really important, why is this so significant, this flow, this peak performance, or this peak experiences, spiritual experiences? It's simply because the least sexiest way I can describe for why we do what we do is neurochemicals, right? Dopamine, serotonin, all of these chemicals. And they say that you make the most at the same time, the most different ones that are beneficial, and the most, like, how many of it, intensity, when you're in flow.
When you don't push, when you don't try, when you don't say, I need to do this, but when things in your life, in your daily life, are flowing from one situation to another situation, without actually Lao Tzu has something like that, doing without doing. He says something like that.
Exactly. This is that it's like it's like effortless effort. That's what they describe it also.
Effortless effort. Yeah. So about the peak performance part, why is it important for us as human beings to feel that I want to say achieve, but maybe I should just correct my words after what we just talked about, feel that we are peak performing? And where is it good for?
Okay.
What does it do with us, with our brain, with our body, with our full being?
Yeah.
That we feel like, wow, this is amazing.
Well, funny enough, Maslow said these peak, he called it about peak experiences, right? He says these peak experiences, these keep us from committing suicide, right? He said more about it, but I thought it was interesting because it's like, because you have this in your life, you don't want to kill yourself.
Yeah.
Basically. And I also, someone wrote about it, it's like when you're in love, like romantic love, you have these two neurochemicals that are, that are
activated.
Yes. And of course you can be in love and in flow with your loved one, with the one you're with, but just the love itself doesn't create that much. And then if you think about everything that's about love, right? The songs, the poems, like everything is about this love thing. But then actually flow is so much more than this love feeling. So this flow feeling does so much more for us. And then it's also about, you have this book From Good to Great. It's like a lot of people, it's like a classic. Mm-hmm. And he talks about there's levels that you can progress in, right? If you want to be great, from good to great. And one of the things that help people the most are tragedy, like really like horrible things that happen. That's why Nietzsche always said, my friend, I wish you a lot of like horrible things will happen, that you get sick and you lose loved ones, because you will grow as a person.
So tragedy will help you to grow.
That's what Nietzsche said. And that's also what the guy said in the book. And, but the other thing is flow experiences will also get you much further. And there's a lot of people also that were depressed, they get into flow states and they're out of it. So it's very significant to have these experiences. I would say the flow moments in my life, the high flow moments in my life, those are the most meaningful moments in my life. So that makes it for me much more worth to, be in this body and have these life experiences.
So can you give an example of one of these meaningful experiences in your life that you really felt like, I'm in flow?
Yeah.
And this makes it worth living.
Yeah. Well, my mother married like 2 days ago. So there's a lot of flow there, You have no idea how long the day was, but there's all these moments and you're on the dance floor. I was doing what's it called? Like the twist, with my mother on the dance floor. It's like the best time ever.
You don't think about it. You don't think about how I should do it, what time you're going to do the dance. It's just flowing with your mom on her day that she's super happy.
Yeah. Doing crazy. And it's wonderful. So this is a very simple thing, but I would say from all my sports, and it's all relative if it's like a big thing or not, but to me it was very significant, some achievements I had, or some games I was doing. And
can you tell us a little bit about what sports you did? I know it a little bit, but the listener and the watcher.
Yeah, I started with like athletics, so basically it was like I did all the things you can do on the, how do you say it? Athletics? That's why you say it, right? It's basically running, like throwing, like
I don't know the English word. I'm just trying to find it.
What they do in the Olympics?
Athletics.
Yeah, what they do in the Olympics, right? The track and field stuff. Yeah. So I did that for a while, but and it went well. But we used to get a medal when I would win or whatever. And then my brothers did cycling, and I did it once. I joined them, and I got this big trophy, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna cycle now, because I'm a little boy and I like recognition. So I did that, and then when I was 16, I was a sprinter, but I wanted more action, So I stopped. Within a week, I went playing rugby, and then that also, I did that for a long time. Then I did some CrossFit and some like other small stuff that was later. Now I do more gymnastics kind of stuff, I'm try to walk on my hands. do crazy movements on the floor, just to explore what's possible with his body instead of just pushing weight. So within all of that, there's moments that they feel like, wow, this is really, and you're in bed, you cannot sleep and all of that stuff. The best moments, like one of the best moments is I have this great friend. Actually, I don't see him that often, but I know we're always good. If I need him tomorrow for something important, he will be here. I know. So me and his name is George from South Africa. We started playing rugby together, and the best moments were actually when we were just him and myself on the field, just somewhere in the neighborhood with a rugby ball, like a big field, and we'd just kick the ball and then we'd sprint and try to catch it in the air, right? That was our game. We would kick from long distances and try to make it spin a certain way or try new things. I would be on the field with him for like 4 hours in the sun, and it would be like the best time. And there was also my happiest sports moment because there was no pressure.
Yeah.
There was no nothing. We were so in the moment. And I was so happy.
It reminds me to my childhood when we were living in social housing. In front of our house, there was not a park or something, but we had 2 trees and big trash things. And we had we found a bat on the street, and we had a ball, a tennis ball. We were playing baseball, and all these trees, they were the stops.
Yes.
And I remember running just so many times and throwing the ball under the car so that it was not, they couldn't find it. And just running and running and running, home runs, doing a lot of home runs. And we were so much instead. We didn't know what time it was. We didn't know if we had to go, if we had to eat, if we were hungry. No, we were just in that flow. But I remember a lot. It happened so much more in my childhood than later on in my teenage years and in my 20s and in my 30s. And I would say with me, if I won't be aware of it, it might even decrease. Because the more responsibility I got, what I think I have the responsibility, I need to look after people. I need to look after, this is my responsibility, this business, or I don't know, I need to pay my bills. That is kind of even separating me from the flow.
Yes, and that makes total sense because what you're describing, like what's keeping you away from it, is when you're very analytical.
Exactly.
And even more when there's like a stress component, then even more. Well, we talk about brainwaves. We talk about beta brainwave, and we have 3 states. We have low, mid, and high. And low is like I think we're now in like low beta. We're listening. We're in the outside world. And if I would say, hey, feel how your clothes are feeling on your body, you can do it, but you were probably not thinking about it a moment ago.
No, I was maybe thinking about, hey, my questions, la 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 la. I'm also listening to you, but exactly.
So you're analyzing, and then mid-range is like when I say, okay, before the end of this interview, we have to get this done, and it's something hard, and then we're like a little bit, okay, let's do a good job, and then high beta stress, right? But then what you're describing, the flow state, is more the alpha state, and especially when you're a kid, you're more in that state, right? If I'm correct, I think it's between 7 and 12, your brain is developing that alpha brainwave.
I won't answer on that because I'm not fully sure if it was 7 or 12. So
yeah. And well, I mean, we're all different, so it could differ a little bit. But let's say when you're younger, you're more in that state. You're more creative, right? That's even in the Steiner schools, the Waldorf schools. They say don't teach them how to read and write and all that stuff until later, because you want to push that creative development further and keep them more in these flow states. So what you're saying makes total sense. That's why I would often say, be like a child, right? Or people say in the Netherlands, we say, act normal because you're already crazy enough or something. I'm like, no, act crazy because you're already too normal.
Yeah, you're already too normal. Yeah.
Right?
That's a good one. Act crazy, you're already too normal. Yeah. We try kind of temper people like, hey, but I mean, why do you have even a sauna in your house? I mean, just be normal. You don't need to have a sauna in your house, or you don't need to do this or Özlem or do that or to the children. You know, everyone does it. Be that way. Be in that crowd.
Yeah.
So if we look, you know, you talked a little bit about the brainwaves, low beta, high beta. Maybe also to just clarify it for the listener and watcher, for maybe for some of them it is very new.
Yeah.
Can you just a little bit explain about that? What does it exactly mean, and what kind of stages in the brainwave do you have? I know them.
So of course, So the brain is electrochemical in nature, right? So basically, there's these frequencies of this electricity that your brain makes, and we can measure that with an electroencephalogram. And then when you measure it says, okay, there's certain waves. And then we have categories, right? So there's like certain like speed that it moves. And then if you talk about beta, you have like the high beta is like a very like high, also a lot of activity.
The waves are even like very fast.
Yeah. There's different frequencies. So what easiest way to explain it is like, basically beta is like super aware of the outside world. Alpha is more aware of the inner world. You're still aware of the outer world, but you don't really care. You're more like, you know, in your own dream. You're more in your own creativity flow, right? And then you have theta, and I love theta because it's like when I'm in the plane, I'm always like look around and you see these people like, you know, so their body is asleep, but the brain is a little bit awake, and they're like dozing off.
It's almost like before you sleep, or just when you wake up. Then you could be also in theta, right?
Exactly. And then delta is deep sleep.
Delta is deep sleep.
And every day you go from, you know, beta to alpha to theta to delta when you go to sleep, and then when you wake up, it's the other way around. That's also why they say always with meditation, you know, if you do it before or after sleeping, it's easier to go in a deeper state. But then we also have like gamma, and there's even like other brainwaves that we talk about. And gamma is like when we talk like super consciousness, and not to go too deep because that's a rabbit hole. But let's say when you have an aha moment, they say also, hey, that's a gamma brainwave that you're in. And like you click certain things in your brain, click, and you have this moment. Then you're in a different brainwave. But for now, easiest is when we talk about just during the day, most of the time you're in beta, and when you're stressed, you're in a high range of it, and when you're just more relaxed, you're more in low, but you're analytical. And when you're more in that creative, flowy state, then you're in the alpha state. That's the simplest way for people.
Yeah. Actually, it's very funny. What happens usually when I am with a guest on the podcast, in the beginning, when I start, I just try to have another conversation because I know I'm kind of in high beta. You know, I'm just checking the time. Is the camera okay? Where did we start? Did I introduce? And then after 10 minutes, 12, 15 maybe, I'm just kind of going to a low beta. And then I forget time, and then sometimes even I can hit alpha because you just go so in the conversation, so present in the whole thing that you totally forget about everything.
And the conversation becomes good.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's also, I feel that that's the best conversation I have had.
Yeah, well, you know why? It is because the inner critic stops. And it's like, I think it's called prefrontal hypofrontality. Yeah. It's something of dorsolateral hypofrontality. And basically what it means is, the word doesn't matter, it's just sounding cool almost, you know. But the word, what it means is that the inner critic stops. And it's the same as, that's why a lot of people like the Friday happy hour, right? Because you forget about the worries, about all of the garbage.
You are at work, what you had to do at work. You
and all the stories of you're not good enough, or you shouldn't say this. When you're in flow and you do the interview, you're just like, hey, it just comes out. You don't even really analyze it. You just throw it out.
So when we look back at the peak performance, and I would say peak performance / a little bit flow, not a little bit, actually flow, how is that related to our thoughts, emotions, and behavior? Yeah. Now, I've been sharing with my audience a lot about, how thoughts emotions and behavior work. Like, you first have a thought, and that thought has a frequency, creates an emotion, and based on that emotion, you take an action, or maybe you don't take an action.
Yes.
That creates a behavior, and you are in this loop. But in peak performance, people that feel that they are in flow, that they experience peak performance, what happens then usually?
Okay, it's interesting. A few things. So I also used to think about this, first this, then this, then this, and I'm more like, it's more a circle. You can it's also, it could be a behavior, it leads to a thought and an emotion. It's like a symbiotic thing.
Yes.
And because of that, it makes it already harder to break it down for people because it's like an experience. The other thing is, when you're like, okay, when am I in flow? If we're now going to keep score, if the moment we're going to go in flow, we might not get there.
Yeah, because we're looking for it.
Exactly.
We're trying.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's try to be in flow.
Right? So what happens, basically, I would say, is because if you have all these limiting beliefs, right? And those are part of a program that programs your thoughts, your emotions, and your behavior, right? Still following? Yeah. Okay.
I'm still following it,
okay.
Yes.
So if that's a program you're following, because that is then the habit of who you are, when you're in flow, those parts shut off. You're more free in a sense. So chances are big that you think, feel, and behave outside of your program. So that would mean that you can be a total different, personality, persona when you're in flow.
Usually also you experience it with people that go on travel to a totally different culture.
Yes.
They are just out of their system. They're for 1 month, maybe, let me just say Asia. They are just totally a different person because they are flowing.
Yes. That's because novelty is a huge flow trigger. You have these like multiple flow triggers, and novelty is a big one. So when there's new things, the same thing as when you enter a new romantic relationship, everything is new, right? First kiss, first time sleeping together, first time going there, doing this. So everything is the first time. So you're very aware.
Yeah.
You're not in your subconscious, like, because you go in your subconscious program, like behavior, when you already know what's going to happen. So you're on the autopilot, can go on. So you can think about other things. But when it's a new experience, you're fully present, right? So that happens also when you travel, and that kicks you into flow very easily. The other thing is, in your known environment, you have all these, neurological connections to the people, the places, the stuff, your phone, your laptop, all these things. And that also keeps you into the program, the behavior.
The same loop
yes.
that you are in.
Yes.
Okay, so you say novelty is very important,
Yes.
so new things.
Yes.
But I mean, for someone that is not at this moment in a state of doing something new or, experiencing that. So what could be, for example, a daily practice? Or how do you practice peak performance? And what could the audience that is listening or watching this now also do to experience that flow? Because we all know and we can all feel, I believe, that we know I'm in flow now or I'm not in flow. You don't need to hear it from anyone else. You can feel it in you.
Yeah, totally. And then sometimes I would say, sometimes you just, if you reflect back, then you knew you were in flow.
Yes,
right?
yes,
the moment
exactly.
you're just there.
Like I said with the baseball, right? Yeah, I know it. Yes.
So we all have that. Everyone has those moments. Well, these triggers help, right? And I would say you have individual triggers and you have triggers when you're with someone or in a group. If we start with individual, novelty is a big one. Also deep concentration. That's actually also across the board, also group and alone. So what I do, for example, and that could be an easy daily practice for people, is sometimes I just, close the curtains, or I just, I don't face the window where I could see people crossing by or whatever, or see a lot of birdies in the garden, or just, so I'm more into, if I'm on my laptop. Then I have specific music. I have this like company that makes like stuff that's like neuroscientifically proven that it puts you in certain brainwaves. I turn that on.
Can you share this company with us?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's called Brain FM.
FM.
I like that. And they sometimes they have these great, like even like bonuses and. But they're now producing more and more new music. I really like them. But there are other ways. You talked about, some people talk about binaural beats. It's not always the best to do, but there's a whole. I know people may be familiar with Huberman.
Huberman Lab.
Huberman. He also talked about that there's specific sounds for specific states that you want to be in. So be mindful of what you're putting yourself in.
Actually, every single thing during our day, whatever we put in us, has effects on our conscious and subconscious mind.
Exactly. So the question is, what do you want to do, and what will support doing that? So what I do is, when I want to do some deep work, I literally have music for that, and then if I want to, hours go by. I don't do that because I believe it's good to take more breaks. But that's one of the things. The other thing is just go for a walk. It's very good for the eyes also, like few things like sunlight in the morning, but also to see far away. So I always go here up, the dune, and I have this, I can see a lot. I see the deers, and I just walk around there. It's really nice.
And you do not have any podcasts on your ear? You don't listen to anything?
Not if I work, because if I work and it's a break, then in the break you want to have a break. Mm-hmm. So I don't look at my phone, nothing. I just go out. Mm-hmm. And then I go back, and then straight back to.
But I think this is very important to just point it out. Maybe it is for you the normal, but I hear from a lot of people, even when they are on break, or they are listening to music, or I can call my mom, or I can call my friend, I can call whoever, and there's still an activity going on, and that is also, by the way, including myself. Yeah. There's constantly something. Oh, now in my break I can make the list for la 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 la, or I can do this. And I'm not.
It's not a break then.
No, it's not really a break. You just keep going. You don't do maybe the activity that you have been doing before. Yeah. You're doing something else. Yeah. And I think it's so good, because I know the difference when I also walk without anything, not talking to someone, not listening to a podcast, even that I think I can learn. No. Just shutting off everything and just enjoying the present moment.
Yeah, that's the addiction. And I also recognize sometimes I have the urge to do it. And I know what experience I have when I buy into the addiction or whatever it is, right? So I have this principle: how do I feel before, during, and after? And what's the consequence of doing it?
How do I feel before and after? And what
before, during, and after.
Before, during, and after. And what is the consequence of that?
Yeah. And do I want to do that? So what is the price I'm paying for my behavior? And is it the price I want to pay?
Is it also the question that you ask right now, this? Do you ask that in a high beta state? Or do you ask this yourself when you are relaxed? Because I think there's also quality of answer to that based on how you answer. If you're on the phone with your friend and you're stressed, you're asking yourself, do I want to be this before, during, and after? There's a totally different answer than really sitting down for a moment or walking for a moment in silence and then asking yourself to this question.
Exactly. So those are the big moments, the reflective moments, which is doing a walk for me, or write my journal. And then it's a habit now for me. So when I'm about to do something and I know, because I already thought about it. So I have the metacognition, right? So I'm able to be in the moment and to observe myself as the reflective. And when I'm in that state, then I know, I already thought about what it will do, so I can connect with that thought. And it's a program of like asking that question. So I'm like, So, and it doesn't mean you can never do something that there's a price. I mean, if you want to eat ice cream once a week or something, and you're like, no, I'm going to be a little bit, but I want to eat ice cream, and I'm going to enjoy it so much. So before I have the pleasure of, going to the ice cream store, and then I'm eating it, I'm like super happy. And then after I feel a little bit crappy for like, whatever, maybe if you get the sugar rush, but it's not too bad. And it's okay. If I do it every day, then, after will be a disaster. But if I do it sometimes, it's good. So that's why, coming back to the question, what can people do, is find out for them what triggers them to be in flow. Well, there's things we say in the literature, like these things happen, right? Also, for example, to stretch yourself slightly out of what you know you can do. Just a slightly stretch, not too much, that's snapping. It's a slight stretch. And for example, very simple. If you're like, if you're able to do a certain amount of running, you can do a 10K run, then you go for an 11K or something, Don't go for a 30K, and you go for an 11K, and then it's a stretch for you. You never do that. You thought you couldn't do it, and it's a small stretch. And so that's the challenge skill ratio we talk about. And they say 4% is the sweet spot. But hey, that's
an average 4%.
Yes.
For some people it's 10, for some people it's 2, for some people it's 1. I think it's so important to also listen to yourself, really. For me, years ago, I was like starting with sports, and then I went 7 times to the gym this week, next week, the week after, and then I was like, I'm exhausted, I'm not going anymore. And then my very dear friend, he told me, hey, why don't you just go for 1 year long, 2 times a week, just each time 2 times. You don't skip any week. Yeah. And then I did the first 6 months. Then I did after the 6 months, I did 3 times a week. Then after that, I was like, I go for sure 3. If 4 and 5, that's great. But 3 is nowadays still 3 is my standard. Yeah, I go always 3 times. I work out. If it's 4 or 5, maybe 6, amazing. But 3 is great.
Yeah, that's good. To comment on that, I have this thing that for me it's important that I have fun.
Yeah.
And then there's the other thing that before sometimes I feel like maybe not today, but then I think like I know when I'm there. So during again, I will feel amazing, and then after I feel even more amazing. So then I can push myself through the before, and sometimes I trick myself like I'll go for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll go for half an hour. And I'm there, and then when the juices come, right, the endorphins, for example, you'll go. And that's also a little bit of these things what you have when you're in flow. There's like you have these neurochemicals, these hormones, they'll start influencing you, and then you just want more.
This is actually funny. I also want to share this with you. Like when I'm also sometimes running, and especially in the beginning when it's cold, I might not feel like it. I'm like, and then after 5 to 10 minutes, I'm like, I'm just in it, and then I'm going. And to put myself in a flow state, to experience actually peak performance there too. What I feel like I am walking now with all my female ancestors. I don't know, that's just makes it trick for me. It's not a male even. I walk with all my female ancestors. I walk with them. My grandmother, my other grandmother, all my aunties, and all the women that I have never seen, but my ancestors. I'm just walking with them, and that makes me feel like they're walking with me. We're walking together, and puts me in flow. I enjoy it so much.
Yeah, that's great. So this to me, and there's like a whole spiritual side to it, but there's also the practical. Just whatever helps. If it makes you feel great, and it doesn't hurt anyone directly, why not?
Yes. If it doesn't hurt anyone directly,
Yes, and I would say always the biggest piece to peak performance is a relationship with yourself. Because your N is 1.
So one more time, the biggest piece is
establish a good relationship with yourself, a healthy one, that you really know what works for you.
How do we do that?
Yeah, well, one is, I already gave it away, reflection, right? So and that little thing that I say before, during, and after, if that's a habit, then you really start understanding, to know thyself, right? That's that. So in all those times, the past, present, and the future, I will know how this, if it works for me or not. And there's also this simple saying, the truth is what works for you, what works today doesn't have to mean it will work 3 years from now. So this is why, if you really know yourself, what works. If people would really want to know what's good food, for example, you will know. Some people, they know, sometimes I eat this and I feel a little. If you really want to investigate, you can. And if you listen more to it, you probably feel better. And it's with many of these things. Some people, they do their most creative work in the morning, and they do administrative work later in the day because they know the other way around doesn't work that much. So that's how you just try things.
Would you say that, this might be a big actually statement, the relationship that we have with ourselves actually defines your life? Would you say that?
Yeah.
So, you said about before, during, and after, eh?
Yeah.
What kind of effect would this have before, during, and after? There are also many, many situations with different people that they know what will happen before. They will know what will happen during. They will know what will happen after. And they might even say, they will be reflective of, okay, if I just go, instead of doing that run, I'm going to drink my 10 glasses of beer. I don't know, I'm just go for the alcohol. I go for that overeating. I go for numbing myself on social media. They know it. Why do so many people still take the decision to scroll on the social media, get that alcohol, get that numbing with food or whatever, even distracting themselves with all the other things?
Yeah. Well, an addiction is something that you cannot stop yourself.
You cannot stop yourself.
So if it's an addiction, the addiction, the pull of the addiction might be stronger than the pull for something that will benefit you, right? Then it's more important. Also, people are inclined to believe short term is more important than long term, right? And you can do practices for it, but just understanding this, it's like easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life, or what, the old...
Easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life.
Yeah. Like Jim Rohn always used to say, you have to at least have one pain of two, right? And I mean, I don't like that you have to get a pain, but still, the pain of regret or the pain of discipline. And the pain of discipline weighs ounces, the pain of regret weighs tons. But in the short term, you're like, fuck it, I'll just, and then you regret later that you've done that and the pain of discipline is more in the beginning that you're like, okay, let's do it. And then you feel, oh, this is great. So it's very simple. If you're very aware, if you have the metacognition switched on because you do a lot of reflection, if you're very present with yourself, and if you have a high reason why, right? If you
high reason why,
if there's a strong goal, if it's like, hey, if you have no reason to be at your best, right? So this is a flow trigger also, purpose, passion and purpose, something you love to do for yourself and something you love to do for someone else. You need both. So if you don't have that, why would you do it? But if you say, hey, these people that I see that want to, some people just want to lose weight and it's hard for them until they have children and they see, hey, I'm not going to, be able to play with them or whatever, or something like that, then they lose the weight. Because the reason why is so much bigger. Yeah. And it's very simple. I do this all the time when I talk to people. It's like, if this is the if this is the goal and this is my obstacle, I cannot see it, right? Yeah. So if I, for example, if I would get something that's way bigger and
I will put you bigger.
Right? Yeah. If my body right now is, I don't have stuff here, but if my body right now is the goal and this is the obstacle, you can still see me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But this you cannot see, but this you can.
Or even if the obstacle is really big, make a bigger purpose.
That's what I mean.
Much bigger.
And that is in our control always. So, and that's also why this is such a great flow trigger. Now, so for people who have that they, indulge themselves in limiting behavior, it's basically, you have to be present again of before, during, after. And most of the time you're not, or you don't care enough. And that's the beginning. Also, for some people, they need a bigger reward. And that sometimes is, okay, if I do this, then I will, whatever, then I can do this. Sometimes some people need that. And also in this great book of Atomic Habits, it's also a great book about habits and about...
Yeah, James Clear.
Yes. And he talked it also about something, that there's this trigger, but then at the end there's a reward. And you do this I always say, do this until it becomes autotelic, that the thing in itself becomes the reward you want. Then you don't need the reward at the end. So in the beginning, use the reward. Use the carrot and stick. Then you don't need it anymore. Then you're the reward. Becoming more of your potential, becoming a loving person, becoming someone that has a life that you feel like, wow, that's rewarding. That's the biggest reward you can get.
So if you keep doing that, like if you keep having your purpose bigger than actually the obstacle, if you just keep reflecting on what happens before, during, and after the event, and you start slowly changing day by day. Maybe you start now, not tomorrow, but now, tomorrow again. And on the other day, it will be like, it's difficult, but you just keep going. What happens after a longer period of time with our brains, with the neural pathways?
You rewire it. Yeah, definitely. It's basically just, if you're in the forest and we walk on the, in the forest you walk on the path. Right, that's the autopilot basically. Then if you think, okay, it could be a good idea to go left here. There's no path, but you do it anyway, and then a lot of other people do it also. Then that could become a new path. And if you keep on walking it, and no one will use the normal path, that will vanish. It will, like Chernobyl, right? Life will take it over, and the nature and stuff. It will grow close and the other one will grow open. And that happens literally in the brain. Some neurons, they disconnect and some new connect. And then if you use it more, it's like a stronger, bigger pathway. And this happens in the brain. This is also how you change beliefs, of course, and how you change behavior and all of those things. And what is significant again about the peak experience is it's almost like a positive trauma, right? It's like a moment that you cannot forget sometimes, or you want more of. And then everything, you can change a lot in those moments. It's like a wake-up call. Yeah. And a wake-up call is not always, someone dying or something terrible. It can also be, getting a baby or something beautiful, or like a peak experiences. Yeah, or being in theta, and then just going really inwards and feeling what is really happening there. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Cool. This is really very, very, very interesting. I also want to talk about the quantum scan you were talking about. Is it called the quantum scan? Yeah, well, you can call it many different ways. So because you also do the quantum scan. Yes. Well, if you want to know more about this before, during, and after, it helps if you're better informed. So more information helps you with a better informed decision. What is it exactly? For me, it's also a very new area, and I'm sure for some of the listeners too. Yes. So before the Cold War, there was this idea that came that was about, a different way of helping the elite troops to make sure you have the best of the best, and you have the tools to, make them healthy. And then there are also people going to, space. Well, if you have these astronauts and one of them gets sick and he's up there and he needs treatment, well, it's a big challenge, right? So you need to be very sure it's all taken care of. So they created this technology. And this technology, I also know that's not a positive thing, but they say the Russians, they use a lot of prisoners to make a big benchmark, database of what balance and disbalance is in health. So in a sense, it's quantum physics. So it's about biophotons. And this is also a big study from, you can track it back to Einstein and Alexander Pope, many of these scientists. But basically it works on light frequencies. And a lot of these technologies, they were on sound. This is on light, the ones I'm using. And I can measure potentially 19 billion points in a person's body. 19 billion points 90, in a 90 billion points in a person's body. Yeah, all the way to your DNA. Do we have so many points actually? Yes. So think about cells, right? They say you have 50 trillion cells, right? So there's even more points potentially, but I think this is already a lot.
And what do you measure exactly when you measure this 90 billion points in someone's body?
I would say potentially I can measure so much. When I do a scan, I'm not necessarily do all of those points, but what I'm scanning is for all the organs, right? All the important parts of your body, all the organs I scan. And what you basically can see is like all the psychosomatic themes. So, you know, for example, the liver, you know, could be also about anger, or the stomach about not digesting things you worry about, or there's a lot of things also in the head that stands for a lot of psychosomatic things, right? And basically the old sayings, especially in Dutch, we have many old sayings that are very psychosomatic. Nowadays, it's not cool anymore to say those things, but it's very wise. Now, I work with all these psychosomatic themes, but it literally, the databases are also really connected with that and with emotions. So certain emotions can give you a disbalance in your system. Now, that's great to know. So if there's it could even like this thing that called lent, right, in English, that you feel that people are using you, and you feel used. And because of that, there's a disbalance in your liver, for example. Well, that's great information.
So that belief, I feel used, might create a disbalance in your liver.
Yeah, and it's like even it's something you feel.
Yeah.
This is not necessarily the belief. It's something you that can experience.
Yes.
You have an emotion, but you also have it with beliefs and with imprints, and we can see behavioral characteristics and the associated behavior that goes along with it. So, for example, you know, sometimes I have many people that they hate themselves, you know, and then that started sometimes very early. And some of these people, their parents hate them, or you know, I'm not going to say names, but you know, I see these, like I have this woman I work with, and she had a story about her grandmother that didn't want her to get born because that would mean that her daughter was going to move to a different country. And in her imprint, I go deeper into the DNA, I could see literally that in the beginning of her life, there was this hate, and there was this rejection of womanhood and all of that stuff. And the emotion of hate was in her chest. Well, there were all kind of problems in the body, all kind of diseases, and very, very strong emotions and very strong negative patterns that were already there early in life. And what's great about it is that you almost have to do hypnotherapy to get to that depth with someone. If I just go, you know, I do most of my coachings when I do it in person. I go for a walk on the beach. It's great, but it's harder for me to get to that core that fast. So now you put on the sensor on your head, and within a few minutes, all this information get downloaded. You know, it's all there, and we can.
And you
deeper.
do this with all the clients that work with you. You are just able to do this. You're certified.
Yes, definitely, and I can even do it non-locally, which is a whole different ballgame. But that means
non-local, like someone in Australia now. You can actually do the scan right now from Noordwijk. We are in Noordwijk, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
I was going to say Amsterdam.
Yes, and that's because it's quantum physics. And quantum physics, this is the whole thing about non-locality, right? And we all know this. We all know that everyone has this, at least an experience, or many people have an experience that they feel something is wrong with their child or something's wrong with their partner, and that they very strong, or especially with these twins, right? Twins have this even more. If they feel like, oh, something happened to my other, you know, to my other sibling, and this is all quantum mechanics. If we get two cells and they paired up, and we shoot one up the moon and we change something there, the other one instantly, another second between, instantly something will happen there too.
So do I understand it well? With this scan, you can measure a lot of points in your body. Yeah. And you can also realize and recognize what kind of beliefs you are having from actually the past that you actually take over from your parents, grandparents, all ancestors that are actually still in your body.
Yes.
But what happens after you know that? What happens then?
Yeah. So great question. Let me clarify one thing. We work with the name imprints because it's imprinted. in your system. Because for a belief, you don't even know you believe it sometimes, right? It's so imprint is more, it's imprinted in you, like literally. And then, like Dr. Joe Dispenza, we talked about it, he always said that the body is a record of the past, right? The brain is the record of the past, but it's also stored in the body.
Exactly.
So we can literally see it's imprinted in the body. So when you know that, you can work on, okay, you can explore to what degree someone is in that belief, so to say, and then you can, do a whole exercise on how to basically reprogram these beliefs and override it with something that would, support you much more. And then we do the conditioning, because, think a new belief once might not be enough, but we will walk that new path in the forest, so to say, much more.
So what I understood actually from this conversation we have is the knowledge is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you also? Knowledge. What is happening if I do this before, during, after?
Yeah.
And after you know how to you need to let it go in a way, different way. And then you need to rewire it. Yeah.
And the most important thing to understand about that rewiring, it's a process, and doesn't mean the old thing is completely gone. Sometimes if you want, it's still there, but the new thing could become the new standard, the new normal, the new autopilot. And that's the most important thing. And from this scan, it's like with this part we're just in, but we can see I can even see what kind of radiation is affecting what part of your body, or nutrients you're allergic to, or what you need more of, or the best food for you for peak. If we talk about peak performance, okay, what type of food is good for you, and not just meat or fish or veggies, but specifically what type.
Yeah.
So there's so much. There's homeopathic things that we can apply in the body. There's sound frequencies that will heal you. There's it's endless impossibilities. That's why I'm so fascinated about this, and I love to use it on people. When I do a coaching, like a half a year or a year that I work with a person, it's always great to have a few times that we do this.
So Robert, you teach organizations,
yes,
neuroscience,
yes,
you do one-by-one coaching,
yes,
you do group coaching,
yes,
you also do the quantum scan with what was it called? What did you say? Imprint.
Yeah.
Imprint.
Yeah.
If anyone that listens to this right now would like to experience more flow and would like to work with you, where can they find you? Yeah,
I would say I'm rebuilding my website, and I'm not sure if it's fully done when we're there, but let's say just shoot me an email. I have multiple emails. So
what is your email address? One that you use often?
The easiest is just, there was this whole thing that you cannot use Gmail, it's not professional, but I think at this point I'm
please.
I use that much more than all the professionals. So Robbert van Ede at gmail.com.
Robbert van Ede at gmail.com. We'll put it in the episode notes, okay?
Yes. Otherwise, you said Robert with double B, but you'll see it. And then, LinkedIn is always an easy way to find me.
Robbert van Ede, LinkedIn.
And I have the intention to get back into the socials with doing more Instagram and stuff. I had a little bit of, I didn't want to get involved in that whole addictive behavior, but I thought, I think it's time for me to get more out there.
We will tag you then in the reels that we will create from it, actually.
Great.
Thank you so much. And do you have a last message? That's what you would like to share with the audience, with people that really felt hey, here I have learned something, one more thing that can bring me one way forward.
Yes. Okay. It's maybe it's kind of against everything we say, but in the end, we think we need something outside of us. So find the answers within. And that's the relationship I talked about with yourself. And you don't necessarily have to listen to these sound things that I said, or do all these things, or do these walks. Just, trust that you have everything you need is already within you, and trust that it's there. And from there, you get a certain relationship, and then you will naturally, you will know what's good for you or not. You don't have to read all the science papers. I know you don't have to. Just, let it come from within, And when we talked about, before we started, we also said you have this thing, and we love all to explore it. But in the end, you can become a victim again of that you're this person and you have to do it this way, and then you're in like a straitjacket, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So create your own being with the relation, with knowing thyself, and that's freedom. And from that freedom, you can be in flow a lot.
Yeah.
And then when you're in flow is a intensive experience. So when you have a lot of flow in your life, make sure you also do more resting activities, right? Do like a power nap or whatever. Do things that, like the sauna or whatever. Do things that relaxes
That's
you.
a good one. That's
do
a good
more
one.
Meditation, everything. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Robert.
You're welcome.
Really, thank you so much.